My name is Shireen Rahimi. I'm an underwater filmmaker and storyteller and marine scientist. And we are here in Miami. We just went out today to tell a conservation story about Miami's mangrove ecosystems. And it was also branded, so we did this story around sea scooters for a company that creates sea scooters, and how these sea scooters can help us get out in nature and explore our backyards so that we can better protect them. As a visual storyteller focusing on ocean conservation and as a marine scientist, a lot of the work I do is around ocean conservation and getting people to pay attention to what's happening in our oceans and how we can protect it. That work doesn't always pay super well, and so sometimes I have to take commercial projects like the one that we were doing today to kind of pay my bills so that I can, make the money that I can use to do the passion projects that have maybe more of an impact on the real world. So even though this was a branded story, so even though we were creating a story around a product, it at the same time allowed us to highlight and profile the work of a local conservationist named Theo Quenee and the work that he's doing to plant mangroves just off the shores of our home. And how amazing is that we get to support his work and support the well-being of mangroves in our city.
My name is Theo Quenee and I'm the co-founder of Senate for the Sea. We're a student-led nonprofit with our focuses being entirely on teaching people about garbage in the ocean, but also about the local ecosystems such as mangroves and seagrass beds. And from that, mangroves kind of became a place we would frequently clean up. So we would target a lot of the mangrove forests because, as you probably know, mangroves tend to collect a lot of garbage. They're like pool filters, right? Trash comes in but never really leaves, and the forest grows no matter what. So what we were trying to do was really just clean up the mangroves, make sure that they could grow in a healthy manner, but also educate people about mangroves while we were inside of them, cleaning them up. The mangrove nursery project came about when an old teacher at the high school that I used to go to illegally trimmed some of the mangroves that were right behind the school. And I had been trying to gear up a mangrove nursery project in Miami somewhere at the time, and I saw that as an opportunity to approach the teacher, but also the school, and say, hey, look, we could start a mangrove nursery here, get the kids involved, and use this bad event that happened as an opportunity to kind of grow in a better way. So we started involving the school students and teaching them a little bit about the process of mangroves, how they're grown and why they're important to our shorelines. We started growing them, and now it's been going on for 2 years, and we have about 70 to 80 mature mangrove saplings that are ready to be planted. So now the problem that we have to solve is finding restoration sites that are local for these mangroves to be planted into. There's always the overlying thing of disasters happening with hurricanes, where there's boats that wash up on shorelines in razor blade mangroves, right? But then there's also construction issues where sometimes people illegally trim off mangroves. And then there's just the overall need of planting mangroves in places that maybe were overlooked when there was a redevelopment happening. Like right now on Rickenbacker Causeway, they're redoing some of the beach park that's before the bridge. And that area prior had a lot of Australian pine and a couple mangroves here and there, but the Australian pine is an invasive species that releases a bunch of pine needles onto the floor and really eliminates any other species from growing, whether it's mangroves or oaks or anything. And they basically redid that entire shoreline, but there's no mangroves in the plan for planting of native species along that shoreline. So the real goal is getting in touch with these construction projects, maybe while they're being passed through the city ordinances or through the city hall when they're being approved for planning, and really being able to tell the construction people or whoever's in charge of the landscaping for the project, hey, mangroves will be great to implement on that shoreline, and they're gonna grow there naturally. So really, I think the key is to be educating not only people like you and I that are interested in the world of oceans as a general, but also the people that are like not at all invested into the ocean, you know? Because at the end of the day, those are sometimes the people that are in charge of creating these construction project layouts that are redeveloping our shorelines, and they might not even know what mangroves are. So giving them the idea that mangroves are a suitable species to, one, reinforce the shoreline, two, create a better ecosystem for the bay, and three, mitigate climate change, you know, that's an overarching goal of ours. Without mangroves, Florida wouldn't be here. With all the hurricanes that come by, the wave and wind energy that we receive through storms, the shorelines would be shifting like crazy, and mangroves really hold together the shorelines. They prevent shoreline erosion, and without them, all that sand would be washed out, right? So that's the main reason why mangroves are important on a structure standpoint, right? And then there's the habitat benefits, which are increased fisheries, right? Mangroves are nurseries for tons of different species of fish and birds, and without them, these small fish wouldn't be growing up and then heading out to the ocean where they feed game fish like mahi-mahi and marlin and all these different species of tarpon and grouper. So from a tourism standpoint, mangroves generate a bunch of revenue for the state of Florida. Those are two very big important points. And the third is climate change. They sequester a lot of carbon. So as we were kids growing up, like, we were always taught the Amazon was the powerhouse of carbon sequestration around the world. But the mangroves can actually process 10 times the amount of a terrestrial tree when it comes to carbon. So their root systems are so dense, and they really suck in a lot of carbon. And all the leaves, when they fall off the mangrove trees, they turn into more sediment. So they actually build land over time. And that's why they're very important to South Florida. The first process is propagating the red mangrove is like the most common tree. This is a red mangrove behind me. It's the most common propagule. I mean, like, mangroves are kind of like turtles. They have a lot of offspring with the chance of only a couple of them rooting themselves. The rest of the seeds that wash up on the shoreline actually turn to fertilizer to help grow the ones that do root themselves and grow. So basically, you can go collect any mangrove propagule that's washed up on a sandy beach, a cement like seawall or boat ramp, because they're not going to have any chance of growing, so they're going to die anyways, right? So you can grab a couple of them, take them home. I would recommend putting them in a bucket or like a Greek yogurt container or something with some fresh water, and you just leave them in the sun for a little bit, and after 2 weeks or so, they'll start getting little baby roots on the very bottom of the propagule. And from there, you just wait a little bit until they get about 1 inch long, and then you can plant them in soil. And once they have those roots, it can absorb the nutrients from the soil properly. And at that point, you just want to make sure they're being regularly watered, and that's really all you have to do. They really are self-sustaining in the sense of growing. They don't take a lot of attention. They just need to be constantly soaked in water and receiving heat. So yeah, that's really all it takes with mangroves. And when it comes to planting them, if you're growing them in fresh water, you do have to acclimate them to salt water, because if you just plant them right away in salt water, they're going to get shocked and they'll kind of die. Like in South Florida, specifically here in Miami-Dade, city of Miami, you need permits to plant mangroves. So you do need a proper sort of like system to go plant them. It's not like you can just plant them. I wish you could. It's a good thing, you know, it regulates a lot of randomness from happening. And yeah, I just hope to see Miami in the future become a little bit more geared towards living shorelines instead of concrete seawalls. I think they have a huge benefit over concrete in many different realms. So that's, you know, I hope to see Miami get steered in that direction in the future.